All right, welcome back. That was Timi Dakolo inspiring every one of us that, of course, it is indeed, as Nigeria is still indeed a great nation, that this is our nation, we go nowhere. Whenever I listen to that song, you know, I get inspired. His voice, I love his voice, and the lyrics, something else. For those of you that are regular viewers, you will know that on the 1st of October, I'm always playing that song, you know. And The Land is Green by T.Y. Bello. All right, my guests are here. Dr. Obadiah Melafia is the former Deputy Governor at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Dr. Irregular, is Dr. an analyst now, a thought leader, or I don't know, or an elder statesman on the show?
Thanks for the promotion.
Welcome, Doctor, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Happy Independence Anniversary to you and to all Nigerians.
Thank you very much, Doctor. All right, close to him is Patrick Okigbo. Of course, Patrick Okigbo is a principal partner at Next Year. Patrick has been a long time. Welcome. It takes the Independence Day to get you out.
Yeah.
Thank you, and welcome to the program again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So, Nigeria at 56. Perhaps I should start with Dr. Melafia. At least, I don't know what your age is, but
yes.
I do know perhaps you were born
It's
before
definitely
independence, or
just before. So at least 50s, late 50s.
Late 50s, okay?
Yes.
Because I'm not in that generation.
Absolutely.
So
Exactly.
I don't know what Nigeria was like
Yes.
before independence, or even after independence still.
Yes.
You know. So what was Nigeria like before independence? 1960. Because with what I've heard, that Nigeria was working, education, you know, you come out of school, in fact, you have companies waiting for you and all of that.
Yes.
But people like us, after much more after independence,
Exactly.
we didn't experience
Anyway,
that. What was it like?
Anyway, I started primary school as a 5-year-old in 1964. And, you know, Nigeria was wonderful. Nigeria was great. I still remember that, you know, it was a very happy country. There weren't too many cars. There was no color television. But it was a very happy country. People were very nice. People were very cultured. And, you know, I remember as a child, I saw Ahmadu Bello. He was wearing he looked a very huge man, and he was always smiling for some reason, you know. And I also met Awolowo. He looked incredible. He had this, even as a child, I just felt this charisma about him. I didn't meet Zeke, but of course I saw him sometimes during broadcasting and so on. They were amazing people. It was a great country, and what made them different was they were people of very high intellect. And I'm afraid to say that subsequent generation of leaders don't even measure a quarter of the intellect that these people had. And for a great country, you need people of very high intellect. You know, governance requires very high ability. People don't realize that. Today, anybody who's a dropout can become anything, you know, and that's not good enough, you know. We'll have to go back to building leaders who think deeply about the political challenges of their country, of our country, and who can come up with plans, you know. And we need to go back to that tradition of strong, able, patriotic leadership. So the Nigeria I grew up in, there was no oil aside, there was no petroleum. Petroleum was discovered in 1956, but the British didn't realize even the amount that was available. The offshore wasn't even discovered. It was only onshore in Oloibiri, in current Bayelsa State. And, but, you know, even with that much oil, Nigeria was doing extremely well. What I remember was that crime was very, very rare. There was very little crime around. In fact, it was not until I started secondary school in 1970 that the first case of armed robbery, a man who called himself Dr. Yenusi, was said to have been an armed robber. And that we were informed when we said, what's an armed robber? You know, we didn't even know what an armed robber was. Somebody had to explain to us what an armed robber was.
Even in secondary school?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is how peaceful and good Nigeria was. Of course, there was the civil war. My father worked as a missionary. He was an evangelist. And in the late 60s, 67, I remember even as a child that there were a lot of Igbo families who took refuge in our modest home. My father had to accommodate them. One of them gave birth. She was pregnant. She was heavily pregnant. She gave birth in our house. And then my father came under real pressure. They said they were going to attack him if he didn't let the Igbos go. It was so sad. We all wept. In the night, they got up and walked into the bushes in the middle of the night, never to be seen again. And I have never ceased to be haunted by such childhood memories. There was the war, which was terrible, which was horrific, which was traumatic. And, these are things that our generation of leaderships need to think about those issues. We need to build a nation. Sadly, we are still not a nation. We need to build a nation, get our people together, give everyone a sense of belonging to one great country. We need to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you for taking us through memory lane. At least I wasn't born then, but at least I have an idea of what Nigeria was like, at least with you. And it's sad, I think history is no more taught in our schools.
No.
I was told that. I think it should be something that should find
It's just
its
been
way.
reintroduced
Yeah,
again.
it's been reintroduced. Fantastic, because some of us were advocates of it. History should be taught. Now, Mr. Okigbo, you've heard Dr. Melafia. I don't know if you were born before independence. But what was Nigeria like? What was the Nigeria you grew up in? Because in 1960, at least, Nigeria had a population of about 45.2 million people. And now Nigeria is in the excess of 180 million people. But some school of thought also say, come on, guys, we are not up to that. We need to even measure ourselves. We need to know how many that we are. But that's a question for another day, because a country that don't have data, or that the data is not credible, when last did we do census? In fact, I was listening to, was it a report yesterday on one of the television stations, and my own Delta State, Asaba, capital, was said about 140-something thousand. In 2006, I was like, what? If I even go home for the holidays during the summer and I find my way in Asaba, you need to see. I think even in my village, we are more than 140-something thousand. But that's a different ball game. So, what was Nigeria like when you were growing up? And, just talk to me about your experience.
I'm not sure Nigeria has ever been a great nation. And I think that will come as a surprise to many. But if you use the indices of greatness, I'm not sure we've ever hit any of them. However, before the 60s and up to probably, the mid-2000s, there was a bit of, promise, hope. What propelled Nigeria to independence was the hope of building a great nation. Yeah. So you had the Ziks, the Awolowos, the Tafawa Balewas, who saw a great promise of a nation run by Negroes. And that was a promise, some of our Negro brothers in the United States saw, and they felt there could be a homeland in Africa run by black people that would measure up and challenge any great nation in the world, right? But we missed our way. We missed our way, pretty much 6 or 7 years into independence, and we've been, trying to find our way since then. And I think one of the reasons why we haven't found our way is that there are certain things we hold sacrosanct in Nigeria that we don't touch. We know they're there, but we gloss them over. So for us to ever become a great nation, we need to look at all those gods, unveil them, talk about them, and figure out how to move forward. However, I was born in '73, so I grew up in the shadows of the Civil War. Because I'm Igbo, I say shadows of the Civil War. People who were born in '73 but grew up in Lagos probably would, use a different analogy. But I grew up in a part of the country that was struggling to find itself, in this greater definition of Nigeria. However, it was also a period of great promise. At the time, NTA started showing at 4 p.m. Yeah, and it closed. TVs actually used to close.
Yes, after the
it closed
network
at
news,
it closed at midnight.
Oh, okay.
Midnight.
Yeah,
Okay.
closed at midnight, and
With the national anthem.
At least in Enugu, then they got a priest to say a prayer, you know, and the TV will close with the national anthem.
And you see the kind of TVs.
Oh yeah, you close it, and then you know your dad will lock the TV and take his key, you know. But in spite of that, you know, it was a land of great promise. You know, we thought we were onto something. You know, kids could roam around. You know, nobody, you know, there weren't any of these fears that we have today. You know, you did well in school. You looked forward to Children's Day because there will be a march past. You know, you looked forward to independence, you know, because you hear great stories. Unfortunately, that's not the country we live in today. The country we live in today is a country that is a bit lost, a country that doesn't quite know who it is or where it intends to go or how it's going to get there. And I think that's the tragedy of our time. And that's where I think we should be spending a lot of time as a people, you know, to have discourse like this as to how do we move from where we are today to where we want to be. And in that discussion, we need to even, first of all, realize that we are not a great people. We are not.
We are not a great people. Why
No,
did
no,
you
no.
say that? What are the indices that will make us great? You know, because I watched on Independence Day, there's this platform, the platform. And I think the VC of Igbenedion University, I've forgotten his professor, is it Ehosa or so?
Ehosa Osage.
Osage.
Ehosa Osage.
And he said something which was very clear. And that question, I've actually posed it, I think even to you, Doctor, if I can, with some of my guests. I've asked this question. Is Nigeria a great nation? Is Nigeria a rich or a poor nation? And he did tell us that day on the platform, he said, that we are poor. Come off it. We should tell ourselves the truth. We are saying we are rich because potentials, opportunities, and all of that. What does it translate to? That if you take a look at our budget, for example, New York Council alone, the budget of New York Council is more than, you know, and the government meeting, I'm like, okay, someone is finally saying what I'm saying. It's not that we are unpatriotic, but I think we should tell ourselves the truth. If you're able to tell yourself the truth that this is where I am, and I think I need to move to the next level. Doctor, do you agree with me? Because you are from another generation?
Nancy and Patrick, I'm afraid, agree with any of you.
Good. It's getting interesting.
Number one, I think Nigeria is a great country. Number two, Nigerians are a great people. What is greatness? Greatness is not measured by GDP. What is the GDP of the Vatican? Is the Vatican a great state? It is one of the most influential states in the world. But it is a very small, in fact, you almost think it's a small village, a small place. So greatness is not just about GDP. Look, the greatness of this country is in its people, its civilizational heritage. Look, this land that we call Nigeria consists of some of the most ancient civilizations. The Nok civilization of the central part of Nigeria, the Middle Belt, where I come from, traces its roots actually back to ancient Egypt in terms of its religion, its mysticism, its terracotta sculptures. Think of Great Ife. Think of the great Inri civilization of Igbo land. Okay? Think of the great Benin Kingdom that is over 800 years old in its monarchy. Think about Kanem-Borno, that actually about 5 years ago celebrated their 1,000 years.
Doctor, sorry to cut you. Are we still dwelling on the greatness of the past or the greatness of our history? What has that greatness translated to? The cultural and historical journey so far.
I'm just bringing you there.
Okay.
Nigeria's greatness is also in its present, not just in its past. Look, it's not for us to even say, step out of this country, go to Ethiopia, go to Germany, go to everywhere. Everybody knows Nigeria to be a great country. Have we lived up to that greatness? That is entirely another matter. Have we lived up to that manifest destiny? That we are meant to be the leader of the black race. We are meant to be the leader of the African people. Look, in certain areas, without Nigeria, South Africa would never have gotten its independence. No doubt about it. We spend billions of naira, of dollars, to fight. Nigeria, not far from Southern Africa, was the leader of the frontline states. We invested so much in West Africa, bringing peace to Liberia and Sierra Leone. Some things have been achieved. At the time of independence, there was only one university college. It wasn't even a full-fledged university. Today we have over 100 universities.
That are churning out what kind of graduates, and the graduates are not having jobs?
That is, well, it's another matter. That is the failure of governance. See, I'm not trying to underestimate the issues. I just want to hopefully convince you that Nigeria has a manifest destiny of greatness.
Doctor, it would take more than one show to convince.
But, exactly, well, I agree. But at the end of the day, we have failed ourselves in many areas. I will never underplay that one. We have failed below our promise of greatness. We have governance remains a big challenge. Leadership, which I alluded earlier to, remains a big challenge. So I prefer to focus on that vision of greatness, not on our failures. That is really my position.
Okay, I guess the point I was trying to make is that until we're able to look ourselves in, square in the eyes and tell ourselves the truth, we probably would not start this journey of, developing the country, right? We are not a great country. Civilization started in Africa. So all the civilizations you mentioned, civilization of mankind started in Africa. Is Africa great today? It is not. We know many multi-billionaires, who lived 2 generations ago, whose children are prodigal. Are those children great? I'm not sure they are great. Yeah, and that's the point I'm making. That Nigeria held a promise at some point. But today, we have lost that promise. And until we're able to come back to tell ourselves that we are not who we think we are, then we can begin to rebuild, right? There's so many things I can spill out here. Nigeria, 6th largest exporter of oil, 8th largest arable land in the world, 8th largest population, which should be a massive domestic market, will become the 3rd largest by 2050. These are wonderful to spill out. But unless we realize that these are all potential that we haven't even figured out how to harness, it will not happen on its own. We need to figure out that, we're not there. When we tell ourselves the truth that we're not there, then maybe we begin to think. Because right now, what's happening in the country is that you have people who wake up every day and go to bed every day, believing that there are some smart people sitting somewhere, looking at some crystal ball, and who are going to figure out, the problem that Nigeria has. Sorry, Nigerians, there are no smart people looking at any crystal ball. Until we all realize that we are going to hell in a handbasket, that we've hit the brick wall, and that we need to rethink what we thought before and come up with new approaches. For instance, in the same platform program, P2B talked about a number of things, right? And I've been watching that video over and over again. How many governors in Nigeria have realized that we have hit the brick wall? How many people are cutting back on expenses the way P2B talked about it?
P2B was very practical about it on Saturday.
He mentioned practical things because he realized that he was running a state that wasn't as rich as it should be. And he saved, met all his obligations, and left the state with, I think, 75 billion by the time he left. That's the point I'm trying to make. That when we realize that we are not a great country and that we are a poor country, then we realize that why should we have a presidential fleet of 10 jets? You're a poor country. What do you need 10 jets for? Where are you going? What? You can't go to those places in 1 or 2? Why can't we sell off all those jets and invest them somewhere else? If we realize that we're a poor country, then we can't leave chief executives of public parastatals and so on to run these things as if they're running their own personal bank account. That's the point I'm trying to make. I know I don't have money, so I have to wake up at night and work hard if I want to survive. That's the point I'm trying to make.
What does Nigeria's economic survival depend on, especially now that we're in an economic crisis? The president alluded to that during the 1st of October broadcast.
Yes.
And he did say, of course, that he feels the pain of Nigerians and all of that. He also saluted the patience, the perseverance of Nigerians. Moving forward, as we celebrate 56 years, moving on to 70 because it's already, moving on to 57 because it's already counting already. Well, what does our economic survival depend on?
Well, I'll come to that, but if I may respond to also what
This debate
Patrick
is
said.
getting really interesting.
You know, Patrick, you seem to be conflating two things.
Okay.
Is Nigeria a poor country? Yes, of course. We are not as affluent as the United States. There's a lot of poverty here.
Not even as Ethiopia or Rwanda.
Sorry, but in per capita, we are more than them anyway. So in per capita incomes, ours is about almost $3,000. They are not anywhere near that. But is Nigeria a great country? I still insist. In any case, if you don't feel great, Nancy, if you don't feel, I feel very great.
Great.
To be a Nigerian, and I don't know why, but I feel very great anyway. So it is still a great country, and we're an incredible people. Incredible. Please let no one deceive you. Nigerians are a great people. Wherever they are, they have achieved in all the top Ivy League institutions. You know, my old alma mater, Oxford, a Nigerian student, 22 years, was the best overall student at Oxford University, a female girl who was reading applied mathematics and computer science. You know, stories like that.
The question is,
The
what
issue,
has made Oxford work? Can we
well,
have Oxfords or Oxfords and the Cambridges here?
We can have them
What has
here.
made it work over there? Because
We
I think
can-
that's the conversation we should begin to have. So that
Let's get
people
that
like us,
clear.
our children, we shouldn't pride
I mean,
sending
we
them
can
to
give-
Cambridge
we
or
can give many
Oxford or
examples.
Harvard.
We can pick one or two Nigerians who've done great.
Great.
You know, call Chimamanda Adichie, call
There are a lot
everybody.
of
You know,
them,
there's
there are
so
a
many,
lot of them,
right?
yes.
But as a people,
Yes.
why is it that oil prices dropped off and all of a sudden the bottom has fallen out of our economy?
Now, I think there are two stages to this conversation. First of all, understanding who we are as a people.
Okay.
We're a great people. Make no mistake about it. Have we lived up to that greatness? The answer obviously is no. There's still a lot of poverty, and I am the first to know this. I've worked on development issues. I've worked on poverty issues. I know the extent of poverty, and each of the cities of this country that I go to, I try to visit some of the slums and see what is actually happening, how ordinary people are living. Believe me, this is very close to my heart. There's a lot of poverty here. A lot of it is due to bad planning, due to high-level corruption, is due to poor governance, is due to poor leadership. So in answer to your question, Nancy, what do we need to do to move on to the next stage? Well, we have to revisit the fundamentals of our development strategy. We have pursued a rentier petrodollar model of development, which is totally unsustainable. It has destroyed the environment. It is based on monocultural exports. And of course, once something happens in global oil prices, we catch a big fever. Really, this is the situation. We need to diversify the economy. We need to go back to planning. Okay? We need to revisit the fundamentals of development strategy based on an agriculture-led mass industrialization program. But of course, that will not happen if we don't fix power, if we don't diversify the economy, if you don't upscale the level of infrastructures. And above all, and this is one agenda that we don't have in this country, and that is the agenda of nation building. It is a shame that the last time we had a leader who didn't come with some suspicion of whether they have a hidden agenda or not was Obasanjo in 1976. Even Murtala, people were not happy because people felt he had an agenda. After Obasanjo, people always had one agenda or the other. They always had one agenda or the other. So we didn't have true Nigerians, true patriots, ruling this country with the only agenda of building a nation. So we need to go back to nation building. This is a task, this is an agenda that doesn't exist right now, even in our political vocabulary. We need to go back. And why is that important for development? Why? Because if we plant an iron and steel complex in Alaja is in Delta, right? I shouldn't complain and feel, oh, I'm from Kaduna State, why are they putting it in Alaja? Okay? And things like that. If they are putting an automobile company in Aba, I shouldn't whine and complain that why is it not in Sokoto, why is it not in Kano? when we begin to think as one Nigeria, okay, where should the rail tracks go? To areas that have the best comparative advantage in economic terms. Not to think, oh, okay, it is Niger Delta versus, you know, Lagos State versus Calabar versus Taraba, and so on. But to think as one country, to think objectively and fairly about the problems of this country, about the development challenges of this country, and the way to go forward.
All right.
Yeah, okay, so my problem, and why I started the discussion on the greatness and riches issues, that I knew that this discussion focused on 56 years of Nigeria will very quickly, you know, devolve into ideas on, you know, what's the economic policy and blah, blah, blah. And I set that up to say that there's no new thinking that's required today, because most of the thinking's been done. Yeah, we can tweak them around to fit where we are as a people today. However, we must ask ourselves, why is it that all the plans that were made in the past did not work? Yeah, and I think it will come down to people. That we may not, as a people, have the competence to think ourselves and implement ourselves out of where we are today. If we talk about patriotism, we've had some great patriots as leaders. I think Obasanjo is one of the most patriotic Nigerians I've met. Yeah? But did that quite solve Nigeria's problem? Because whatever great ideas you come up with, somebody needs to implement them. The railway we talk about, oh, okay, go from one, somebody needs to sit within the civil service and think about why should the railway run from here to there? What are we seeing today, and what do we need to see 50 years from now? Do we have people in the civil service who have the ability to think at that level of depth? Do we have people in the private service as well who have the ability to think to that level of depth? And those are the more fundamental questions that bother me today.
So the question of leadership.
I don't know if
it is in different
I don't know if it is just leadership. I think, again, sorry to go back to Peter Obi's speech, but he talked about when he became governor of Anambra State, performance on WAEC and NECO. The state was like at 22 or something like that. And he looked at the problem and saw that his state's Ministry of Education did not have what it took to get the state to where it needed to be.
And return the schools
and he returned the schools to the churches. And in 3 years, Anambra State became #1 in NECO, WAEC, and all of that. You might consider this a bit radical. But if we step aside from this great people, great nation, and look deeply at the quality of competence we have both in the private sector and in the public sector, and if we realize that maybe we do not have the human beings who will walk us out of where we are today, that maybe we need to start thinking about different models. In the UAE, when they discovered oil, they figured they did not have the human beings to do it, and they bought the competence they needed. I am not convinced that Nigeria, as it is currently structured, has the human beings, the human capital, that will think itself out of where we are today and get us to the promised land.
Do you think that we don't have the human capital, or the human capital we have, the human capital is enmeshed in different things, is enmeshed in this, you know, how would I put it, this cloudness of confusion and not knowing what to do, or the cloudness of this is the way we do it, or the cloudness of now you won't change them. It's been done, this is the way it's been done. Like Peter Obi said, that in every decision that he wanted to take, they'll be like, no, that's how it's done. So is it a matter of not having competence, or is it a matter of, no, let's do it this way because it's been working like this in the last 56 years?
First of all, I don't think there's a magic bullet. I don't think there is one problem and one solution to the problem. I think it's a mix, a potpourri of issues and solutions. I think there's clearly a leadership problem, because Anambra State got it right with Peter Obi because he had, you know, great leadership. He was prepared for it, and he came in and he could take very unpopular decisions, and they worked. Number two, which is the point I was trying to make, is that we do not have people. I work in the public sector. That's what I do 9 to 5, you know. And unfortunately, we do not have people who have seen systems that have worked, who understand why things are done in a particular way. We do not. We can spend the next 50 years trying to train this generation of people to, you know, come up, or we might, realizing that we might have hit rock bottom, think about some more radical ideas, radical ideas, to even stop this decline, get us to a point, and in that period where we're trying to do this, train a new crop of people, a new generation of people who will be trained both in the, the hard and soft skills, in morals, in nation building principles and all of that, who hopefully would see a new vision. Because today it's difficult to find 2 or 3 Nigerians who share the same vision of Nigeria. I'm not even sure that this government has a clear idea, a clear vision of where we're going. I haven't seen a vision.
Were you not
document.
inspired with the 1st of October speech of President Buhari?
You're looking for trouble now.
I just asked the question. Because you're saying you're not seeing a vision.
I mean,
President Buhari's speech on the 1st of October, they did do some kind of, okay, we are in an economic crisis.
To
but
be honest.
Well, did you get a sense of economic revival strategy from his speech?
Nancy, President Buhari delivered a speech to the best of his ability. Nigerians knew the ability of the man before they elected him. I am not sure that the people who elected President Buhari elected him on his great economic theories. They elected him because they wanted a strong leader who will stop corruption. For that, he's doing the best he can. On the economy, I am not convinced that we have put our best foot forward. And I'm yet to see anything that gives me the confidence that, 1, we fully realize where we are in terms of what's happening with the economy. 2, that we have a clear sense for where we want to go, and that we have clearly communicated it to Nigerians so that everyone is pulling in the same direction. I haven't seen it before the speech. I did not hear it in the speech. I don't expect to hear it tomorrow.
Doctor?
Well,
No vision that, with what we're seeing right now.
You know, actually, I completely agree with Patrick on what he said, the last part of what he said. I completely agree that, you know, the economic aspect still leaves a lot to be desired. We haven't seen a real comprehensive blueprint with an action plan and timelines and roadmap.
But the government people will
So,
disagree with you, though.
Well,
You know, because, no, they will. I had the special advisor to the president on economic matters about 3 weeks ago, Dr.
Yes.
Adeyemi Dikbel. And I asked him, I said, this administration is perceived as directionless, you don't have focus. I said, no, Nancy, that's not it. He actually even brought a document for me, a booklet. This is what it is. And all of that. I said, so why do Nigerians think that this administration is not focused or is directionless on issues of the economy?
Because we are not hearing enough. Maybe there's a document, but we're not hearing enough. People are not feeling enough that, there are people there who are taking us and working hard to take us to the New Jerusalem. We are not saying that. I said I agreed with Patrick on that, but I wanted to respectfully disagree with him. He's a bit of an angry young man, and I can understand. It is natural. But actually, you made a big mistake, just informational error. You said that the economic plans in the past didn't work. Let me tell you, the best 3 economic plans ever made in Africa were the Nigerian development plan, the first development plan, the second one, and the third one. In fact, the third one, under Gowon, was the most successful Nigeria has ever had. And do you know who crafted it? Your uncle, the late Pius Akibo. In case you don't know, I'm telling you today. It was your uncle. He was the greatest economist this country has ever had. He worked on that plan very hard. It was very, very successful. We're talking about postbellum reconstruction. The whole East was rebuilt as though
At
there
what
had never
point did
been.
we get it wrong, Doctor? Do we still have
Well,
the economic plans of today, economic strategy?
You know, well,
the last time I had needs, seeds, I think
yes.
during Obasanjo days and all of that.
What happened? Well, we need more than more needs and seeds. What happened was that in the 80s, the World Bank, IMF came and told us that you don't need any planning. Planning is bad for you. It's going to give you malaria, and it's not good. It's communist and statist. So we jettisoned planning, and that was a total disaster. You know, the countries that didn't jettison planning, countries like South Korea, countries like Singapore, countries like Malaysia. So look where they are now. So I'm not saying we need planning in the Stalinist Soviet model, but a long-term perspective planning, but not just paper planning, like Vision 2020. All of that is just a waste of time, a waste of resources. The Asia-Pacific countries, the way they did is that, look, they have a plan. Okay, in India and South Korea, they empower the planning minister. He has absolute constitutional powers to decide where to fix a project, where to fix a road, and all of that. They integrate perspective planning with regional planning, provision of urban utilities, and the rest of them. And the civil service, this is also what I agree with you, completely on that. The civil service in Nigeria, the age of people like, Udoji, Jerome Udoji, and all the other, Asiodu, those were fantastic civil, they were world class. Adebo, a German Harvard economist, described Adebo as one of the greatest human beings. He was the head of service of the Western region. These were world class people. World class by any indications. The Nigerian civil service in early 60s was better than that of India. It was better than that of Singapore. Something somewhere happened, and I date it from 1985. Something completely gave up. In colonial times, right from Lord Lugard up to Yakubu Gowon, up to even Obasanjo I, there was what you called the general orders in the civil service. No minister, no premier, not even president could violate the general orders. The general orders were a civil service document that existed since colonial times that decided how public money should be spent. If you are traveling as a president or wherever, as a minister, to the UN, to anyone, the general order specified how much you can get. And a junior civil servant can overrule you if he thinks you are going against the law. Sardauna Amadou Bello once allocated land to some friends. A junior civil servant wrote a memo to him, says, "Sir, you have no competence to allow to arrange land for anybody. It's against the law." And he had to withdraw that that directive. So, 1985, a new military government came that destroyed everything. They threw away general orders. So from that day, money was awoof. Government money was awoof money. You could just take it and do whatever. There were no laws, there were no rules. The railways collapsed, NEPA collapsed, Nigeria Airways collapsed, the universities collapsed.
Okay, doctor, let me
So that is why I say, Nancy, if we are choosing future leaders, and this is my own pet theory, please know their grandparents to the 7th generation. You understand? Before you choose leaders, know who their father is, their grandfather, up to the 7th generation. If you don't, be very suspicious of such people. They are very dangerous.
Okay. Patrick?
No, I mean, the point is, a 1-hour show is never long enough to debate issues of economic plans and whether they worked or didn't work, and so on and so forth. And so for me, I wanted to get to the heart of it, which is, one, we must realize that we are in deep trouble. And I haven't seen anything from the current administration that shows that great realization, that things are terrible. Yeah? When we realize that, then as a people, number two, we have to debate, publicly debate, the future we want. Where are we going? I remember the very public debates around SAP or no SAP, under IBB. Although he later did it, but at least people felt that, you saw, you picked up the newspaper every day and professors and economists and people were just laying out their argument. Yeah? We need to debate as a people where we want to go to. Number three, we must ask ourselves, why is it that we've had all these great plans and we're still stuck where we are? It is because we haven't been able to implement. Why haven't we been able to implement? Because we do not have the people who understand how to implement. And we do not have the time to start training anybody now. Because things are bad. We must stop this bleeding now, or there won't be a country to plan for tomorrow. So, there are some unpopular ideas that might be put forward, including, and this is the controversial part, should we outsource Nigeria? If we have a civil service that cannot deliver, should we outsource implementation?
Okay.
Those are the kinds of difficult discussions I think we should be having today, given where we are.
Okay, just before I come over to you, Doctor, for your closing statement, let me take a few comments on Twitter. Alexis says it's obvious that every government that have been in place don't allow the ordinary people to contribute to the growth of Nigeria. Oshima says Nancy, Nigeria has enough documents and speeches and none is working and none will work. Obina says we've got nothing to celebrate, no power, no job, no road, hunger everywhere, poor leadership structure, no hope for the common man. Kingsley says if 2 or 3 people are doing well in the midst of millions of people, Nigeria is not doing well as a people. Eze says Nigeria's problem is leadership. Dr. Regis said, Nancy, you made a perfect guess today. like Doctor said, lack of intellect of our leaders, the reason for our flaws. Obina says, Nigeria is no great nation. I beg to differ with Dr. Badaya. We are nothing but a poor and a mismanaged country. Youth Connect says, Nigeria is not a poor nation, but mismanagement and underutilization of our natural resource as a problem. I could go on and on, many comments coming through. But Doctor, just as we close the show, what do you want to close with? And what do you think is Nigeria's greatest asset? Very quickly, in a few seconds.
No, Nigeria's greatest asset is its people. Very energetic, very intelligent, very resourceful. The reason why we have performed well below our standards and our expectations is because we have not had the right quality of leadership, and we have not built into it a mechanism for rigorous implementation of whatever plans and programs we have.
Doctor,
but my message really is that God does not make mistakes, and I don't want to sound religious.
Okay, Doctor.
He didn't make a mistake to put us as one country.
I will hold you there. Patrick, very quickly, 10 seconds if you can.
I agree it's the people, but it's all potential, right? It's not real yet.
Yes.
It's potential. So what we need now is someone to harness that potential and then point us in a direction and lead by example.
And lead by example.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on today's edition of the show. At least bringing you out of your houses or out of your beds if you'll be sleeping by now.
Absolutely.
Public holiday. So many thanks, Doctor, for coming.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Great nation.
Good people.
Good people.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for coming.
Thank you
All right, I've been speaking with Dr. Badaya Milafe, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and Patrick Okibo, the principal partner at Next Year. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your tweets today. Please join us tomorrow again. Same time we'll be here. Work starts tomorrow, isn't it? All right. So be the best you can be the change you want to see. I am Nancy Ilo. God bless Nigeria. Bye now.
The land is green, it's green, oh, oh. The land is green, it's green. Can't you see? I can see all the harvest is ready, 'cause he told me so. It's green and it's all mine. In the rain as the clouds go gray, the thunder roars and the earth sings. The season's just beginning. The sunlight it hides as the clouds make way for the pouring of my